So Aaron, thank you so much for coming in. It's Aaron Abbadie, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background before we kind of dive into everything?
Yeah, so I'm a Miami-born, Cuban-American, second-generation Floridian. My grandmother emigrated from Cuba in maybe the 50s and was actually married right down the street at the Church of the Little Flower right here in Coral Gables. So, love being in Miami, love being in South Florida, and really happy to be participating in the real estate market at such a high level.
Absolutely. So you're where? Where are you located right now?
I live in Stewart, Florida, which is in Martin County, just north of Jupiter. If anyone knows where, that is, north of Palm Beach.
Okay, for sure. And family. So you mentioned you lived with your dad?
Yeah, I live with my dad. He's retired. We live in Stewart, like a mile away from Sandsbury Park. Really nice, a lot of waterfront property, a lot of fishermen, boating. But I spend most of my leisurely time mountain biking. It's a little more action-packed than fishing is. Some people love it, but mountain biking's my thing.
I can't fish either, bro.
It's
So I will say I
like catching, but you don't always catch, right? So
catching's like 5% of the time, right?
Yeah, if that.
So I went fishing one time in the Keys when we first moved down here, and we went deep sea fishing. It was me, my mother, my sister, and her baby. Now, we had never been out in the ocean like that, so we got seasick. Everyone was like nauseous, all that. Caught a barracuda, reeled it in, and we were like, right after that, we were like, all right, we're going back to shore. Like, we're all about to throw up. So drove back into shore real quick. It was supposed to be this sunset fishing trip where like we stayed up for the whole sunset. No, it was like 30 minutes and back. Like we were done, fried. And we get back to the shore, and he's like, okay, so you caught this barracuda. Do you want to get it mounted? We're like, yeah, for sure. Like, that'd be so cool. So I don't know. He has us pay like $800 or something, and he sends it to this business that stuffs it, or so I thought. But apparently they just like, I don't even know if they skin it and then stuff it with like styrofoam or something. I thought it was going to be the real fish that I could like hang up on the wall and do all this cool stuff. Turned out nowhere near any of that. And we tried to get a refund, and this guy was like not giving us a refund. So basically I felt scammed out of my mounted barracuda, but I do have the video on my Instagram. So.
You have the barracuda?
No,
You don't have it here?
No, dude,
okay.
We basically got
took your
scammed.
money and the fish.
Yeah, took the money,
Wow.
took the fish, all of that. It was a crazy experience. But anyway, so you're into the mountain biking. Now, this is going to be an interesting podcast, I think, because I'm not too familiar with the location that you're up in Stewart.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be cool, like you educating me and the audience at the same time as far as like the real estate market up there and what goes on. Because we get a lot of people from Coral Gables that want to move up there. So
Right.
What does that process look like, and how should somebody kind of make that transition into retirement?
Yeah, so in Martin County, St. Lucie County, there's a ton of new construction. The locals actually don't love it because affordability is going down, and there's a lot of people who've lived in Stewart for like 20 or 30 years that are on a fixed income that can't keep up with the dwindling affordability. But there's a lot of South Floridians, people who make high incomes, maybe they have a business or they sold the business, and they're going into retirement where they're able to tap into some of their retirement incomes, move to Martin County, St. Lucie County, where they have a lot of supply, not as much competition on the buy side, right? Not as much demand, which makes it a really quiet and comfortable place to settle down and, sail off into the sunset. So I think it's a beautiful place. I joke around because my partner lives here in Miami-Dade, and, there's a lot of stuff to do, but there's so many distractions too. And me living with my dad, who's retired in Stewart, dialed into my business, while there's not as many beautiful women around and not as many things to do, not as many restaurants, I get so much work done. Like, I don't have any distractions. I don't stay out late. I get up early. I go mountain biking, sometimes before work at like 6 a.m. And I accomplish so much more in my day than sometimes people do all week. So I think that's one of the superpowers of living in a quiet, less known, hidden gem like Stewart, because, there's not as much competition, and people really just want to have a good time and treat each other like, good citizens. They want to be nice to each other. And it is a pretty conservative demographic too, which helps, right? Like I lived in Orlando for 10 years, and the variety and the type of people that you meet in Orlando is so different than like living in Palm Beach County or living in Martin County, right? So I think that was pretty refreshing for me.
So how so?
Moving back home.
How so? How is the demographic different in Orlando?
So the demographic in Orlando, like no one there is actually from Orlando, right? People move to Orlando for work or for school, right? They went to UCF, or maybe they are from Tampa. They wanted to get away from the parents, but not move too far away.
Sure.
The job growth in Orlando is like one of the best in the country. The unemployment rate in Orlando was one of the lowest in the country for the last like 3 or 4 years. So I know Orlando like the back of my hand because I lived there for so long. I went to school there. I rushed a fraternity there. I have a lot of friends there, sold a lot of real estate there. But I don't miss it. Interestingly enough, I really don't miss it. I love embracing my South Florida roots. And anytime I go back to Orlando, it's all love. You know, like I do love the city, but I'm having so much more fun in a more robust real estate market like South Florida.
That's interesting, man. So you mentioned a couple different things here that I think we should unpack. First and foremost, I want to share with you, I grew up on a farm in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, town of 60,000, waking up at 4 and going to shovel cow shit before I went to school. Right. So I understand what you're saying as far as that difference of like Miami to Martin County it is, right? So, or maybe even, is Orlando quite a bit bigger than where you're at now?
Quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I kind of understand where you're going with that. And it brings up such an interesting point of like, it's almost like a competition down here. Like, it's like who's got the biggest house with the nicest car and the prettiest girl and all of those things. There's a lot of like superficial city living things in Miami that I have found. Whereas where you are, like you mentioned, maybe not so much of that. It's more for the enjoyment and the happiness and the leisure and like focusing on what matters. So can we dive a little bit deeper into this and breaking down?
Yeah. And like I said, you know, I get so much more done in a day. And even though I'm not on Instagram flexing that I went to Komodo or all these other fancy restaurants that I do hit sometimes when I am in town, right? But on my day-to-day, like I'm so dialed into work and spending time with my family now that I haven't really lived with or close to in 10 years because I've been in Orlando. I realize what's really important to me in my life and equally as much in my dad's life, right? Like he invited me back home to live with him so that I can grow my business and scale my income and accomplish a lot of the things that he never really wanted for himself in his life, right? He chose a different route, but now him being in retirement, seeing me scale a business from zero to where we're at now in the last 4 months, partnering up with one of my best friends, his old best friend's son, right, is really cool for me and for him because I see the twinkle in his eye. And like at first he wasn't really sold on the concept. Oh, you're going to start a business. That's cool. Good for you. Like, I hope it works out. Right. But now he actually sees us selling a lot of real estate and doing the stuff that we said we were going to do when we started. And you know how real estate is. Like you're not getting paid on the business you generate for 90 days, right? It's like the activities you do today, you're going to start to see the fruits of your labor in 60 to 90 days, right? Very rarely do you get a deal in your first 30 days and, close it in a short time frame, right? So it took a little while for him to buy in, and he really wanted me to spend more of my time with him, like fishing, mountain biking, that sort of thing. And as much as I was resistant to it, I do see the value in enjoying the journey, right? Because you can't always be 60 to 90 days away from your dopamine, from your happiness. You need to enjoy the moment. You need to live life to the fullest. And sometimes that means slowing down so that you can go faster, right? Like if all I did was work, and didn't give myself a break, then I'd probably burn out faster than if I did spend a $2,000 that I did on getting a new mountain bike so that I can have a more enjoyable experience with my dad on the trails,
sure.
Right? So that way, now I go like 3 or 4 times a week to Jonathan Dickinson State Park, which is in Hobe Sound near Jupiter. And then Markham Park is in Broward County in Weston, which is probably my favorite trails to hit here in Florida. Ocala is another popular location, which is north of Orlando by about 2 hours. And I've sold some real estate up there, a lot of affordable multifamily housing and single family housing. Also a lot of new construction there, no HOA. Really popular for your retirement community who's strictly looking for affordability and a little bit of space to stretch their legs. But yeah, definitely a lot more active in the South Florida market.
That's interesting. The only thing I know about Cali is John Travolta has a house there with a
house or like an equestrian farm.
An equestrian farm with a runway for his private plane that he like rolls right up to the house. I remember seeing some Instagrams or some YouTube videos on it or something. But
it's the equestrian capital of the world.
Is it actually? That's interesting. Here we have. Are you familiar with Southwest Ranches at all?
No, I'm not.
So it's like straight west of Fort Lauderdale, essentially, but ton of just massive acreage. A lot of horse farms out there. But what's happening now is all the rich and famous are buying the properties and just demoing it and putting up mega mansions. Like Tyreek Hill lives there. Trippie Redd, Jack Doherty, I think, just bought a house there. So it's kind of, and a lot of people actually have a property up there from down here because, like, are you familiar with Pinecrest at all?
Yeah.
So Pinecrest is kind of like that, right? It's like bigger lots like that, half an acre, whatever the case may be. And yeah, dude, it's just wild. But okay.
To go back to your point, 100%, like I think there's a lot of materialism here in South Florida, especially in Miami, that especially retirees are looking to get away from once they get to the latter part of their life, which makes Palm Beach County, Martin County, St. Lucie County, and even Marion County really popular destinations for retirees.
That's interesting. Okay. Let's dive into your mother. So you said your mother is religious, right?
My mother is religious, yeah. I mean, we all believe in God. We're all Christians. But my mom was really the one who fostered that faith in me from a very early age. I went to private school pretty much until I was in 7th grade. Always got really good grades. I always took school seriously, but I knew that I was like being sheltered in a bubble going to private school. So 8th grade is when I went to public school. I started taking AP classes for high school in 8th grade so that I can like accelerate my learning curve and just get a little bit further in life. So I always took school very seriously, but also going to public school for the first time in 8th grade opened up the door to a lot of temptation and vices, fights, girls, pretty much everything that my family was trying to shelter me from. And I grew up really fast those subsequent years.
That's interesting, man. So were you in an all-male school or all-boys
No,
school?
it wasn't all-male school. It was just a really small school. Like every classroom had about 20 people in it, maybe 30, but that was rare.
That's at your private school before you switched
Private
to
school before, yeah.
Okay. So when you switched to public is when all the bad stuff was introduced.
Pretty much. Yeah. And a lot more good stuff too. But yeah, I definitely just they didn't have a really tight leash on me either. Like I was able to do a lot at a pretty young age, which is common in South Florida, right? But in Stewart, where it's like 60% of the people who live in Martin County are in retirement age, you get bored really quick and you want to hang out with people who are your age. And the people who are allowed to hang out outside of school after hours at that young of an age didn't really have a lot to offer except, getting in trouble, maybe playing basketball here and there. But yeah, I grew up pretty quick, spending a lot of time outside, I think looking for leadership that I didn't really have in the home. And my mom and dad were never really like on the same page when it came to raising me and my sister, which, has its pros and cons. Definitely a lot more negatives like in the moment. I definitely believe in family and that, husband and wife should be on the same page, that the father is the leader of the household and that, the wife has to be submissive to the leadership in the household. But if you don't have good leadership and you don't have a submissive wife, things fall apart pretty quickly and the dynamic gets kind of convoluted,
100%.
So I had to deal with a lot of that growing up. But I have a lot of love for my mom. We still go to church pretty much every week. And I live with my dad, so I get the best of both worlds right now.
There you go. That's awesome, man. My parents had me at 18. So my mom had 2 kids by the age of 21. So it was me and my sister. And then my parents were never married, and they split. So, we moved all over the place with my mom. Like, she got into real estate to kind of create a better life for herself while raising us, right? Because in real estate, it's not such a 9 to 5. Like, you kind of make your own schedule, and yes, you work outside of those hours, but she didn't have to send us to daycare, for example. Like, she wanted to spend that time with us. So it made for an interesting growing up situation, I guess you could call it. And then I actually moved in with my grandma when I turned 14, and then lived with her all through high school. So it's interesting, man. Like, I think it brings up an interesting point about females too, and like girls, who they decide to follow, right? That's such a massive decision, because if a female or a man, the reason I call it female, so I'm in the military, it's female and male. So I just got out of training, so they drilled into us, female, male,
yeah, you
female,
don't believe
male,
in all the
female,
transgender
male.
bullshit.
And I'm like, oh my God. So it's like, we couldn't say boy or girl. So that's why I'm saying this. But
they have to have a strong leader to follow.
Yeah. So they have to have, like, if a man, it's crazy. Because if you choose the wrong man as a female, taking you down a wild, wild path, if you just chose somebody else, your life would be so much different. And I always think about that, because I see some males or females, for example, and I'm like, man, why is this female following this man, like, down this crazy path of nothingness or darkness or whatever the case may be? It's like, I try to jump into their mind, like, man, like, I just wish you would have picked someone different. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
For her own sake.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, for her own sake. Because it's like, I don't know, it's just such a crazy thing.
Well, women, in my opinion, want to be submissive. They want to submit. But in order to submit, you got to think about the word in itself, submission, right? You have to have a mission yourself for them to submit. Because if you're focused on them, you're quickly going to lose both your goal and the woman, right? But if you have a mission that's so clear to you that you're convicted that you need to follow, you're naturally going to attract a lot of people, including women, who want to be with you. And that's where I think it goes back to faith and principles and values, because women are going to start throwing themselves at you. You're going to start getting a lot of opportunities. People are going to start working with you in every capacity when you've dialed in on your mission. And that's why I'm so focused, with 100%. It being an election year. And, today's entrepreneurs, I think, are going to define what the next 5 or 10 years are going to look like, regardless of who gets elected, because we're going to have to deal with one of two agendas. And being a business owner has always been the most rewarding thing to be in this country. And I think that's one of the most important things you could do as an American citizen is, grow a big business and grow a beautiful family who you can instill the values that you want to experience on a day-to-day basis, regardless of who's in charge, right? 100%. So, but you need strong men and submitting women who believe in the leader of the household to have that traditional dynamic that I think this country was founded upon.
100%. Such an interesting dynamic, bro. So many different places we could go here. Do you have a girlfriend?
No girlfriend.
No girlfriend. So you're grinding right now. How is the dating scene up in where you're located? Because everybody complains about the dating scene down here, and I'm interested to hear if it's different or the same or whatever.
Yeah, so it's like one extreme to the other, I would say. In Stewart, there's not a lot of talent. So I don't even really try to put myself out there like that, which isn't the best way to handle that scenario. But in Miami, it's like people are so transactional, where if you don't check 9 out of the 10 boxes or all 10 right away, then they immediately move on to the next thing. So I've heard the frustrations that we have here in Miami, and I know the frustrations I have in Stewart, but I think somewhere in the middle is probably the most fun that you'll have in a dating scene. And I've come to really enjoy West Palm Beach and Palm Beach County in general, just because there's more variety. It's a massive county, by the way. There's, you have Delray, you have Boca, you have Palm Beach, you have Worth Avenue, you have old money, you have new money, and it's you even have the rural lifestyle that you have in Loxahatchee and the acreage. So I think that's where I would suggest people start looking.
The happy middle, right?
If you want a happy medium and you want to find a girl with good values, maybe comes from a good family, look in West Palm, look in Palm Beach. I'm sure you'll be a lot happier than what you find in Miami. Because it's just a lot more competitive and cutthroat here.
Sure. So coming from Wisconsin, I mean, everybody's married by right when they graduate college, let's say 22 or 23. and then they're often having their first kid at like 24, 25. Like that's just kind of how it is up there. There's not much to do. There's not much to be like influenced by or that like big city lifestyle. So it's like that's kind of the path. So I just turned 27 and majority of my friends are engaged and all that stuff right now. But dude, I'm definitely, here's an interesting take. I personally think, and you tell me if I'm wrong or what your opinion is, but I think a lot of guys in Miami are looking for females and trying to find these girlfriends and all this stuff, right? But I think majority of quality females are locked up by the end of college. Like I think they're gone, bro. Like you're like if you, I'm not gonna say like on every case, but like if she isn't locked up by then, you're kind of in trouble. You know what I mean? It's like
I think generally speaking, and it's you don't have to gender the conversation, right? Men and women, the friends and the relationships you make in college have a significant impact on what the rest of your life looks like and who you're going to take into those next chapters of your life. But especially women, right? If you get locked up or, if you get tied down, if you get into a serious, intimate relationship in college and you see yourself living your life with that person, they're off the market, right?
Yeah.
So, but that doesn't mean that there aren't good girls still out there. I think there are a lot of great girls out there with great values who want to find a strong man who can give them the lifestyle that they want, give them the family that they want. But I think a lot of men are really soft these days, and I think we're making it harder on women to find quality men because a lot of men are just really soft, looking for handouts and complaining about the way that things are, how expensive things are. They might be very entitled. They might come from a family who's given them everything and they don't have a strong work ethic. So I think men are robbing themselves of the opportunity to meet quality women by not doing the hard work.
100%.
Because the hard work is what builds character, and the character, whether women want to admit it or not, is the number one thing that they're attracted to, right? You see girls all the time going out with men who are not that attractive or, kind of overweight or whatever, and you wonder, like, how the heck is she with this guy?
It always comes back to money.
Looks are not even...
it always comes back to
looks
money.
are not even top 5 most important thing for women. It's everything else.
100%.
And, I think it comes back to, like, having the qualities of a high value man, right? Making a lot of money, being funny, being smart, having variety in the type of conversation and lifestyle that you can give this girl so that she doesn't get bored of you. Because let's face it, we're all of our attention spans are getting shorter. All of our, willingness to tolerate is decreasing because the market's wide open. There's so much out there.
This brings up an interesting point. I remember very vividly my first $1 million deal was a vacant piece of land, and it was a doctor and his wife. And the doctor said, we're doing this to keep our marriage alive. And it's freezing cold in Wisconsin. We're like trudging through like rivers. I got like boots on. We're driving his car like back there. And it was a super cool experience. And the reason I got that deal was because they were under contract on a piece of land. And in Wisconsin, it's different, right? Like the fire trucks have to have a certain degree angle for the driveway so that they can go up, right? But this was too steep. So you could have never built on the property. So I called him. I'm like, back out of this deal right now. Like, you're going to be screwed if you don't. Gets out of the deal. Very big trust rapport built right in that moment because he knew I was looking out for him. Right?
Most agents would have tried to do the deal anyways, but
100%. I called the neighbors, bro. Like that agent didn't even tell us. I was calling neighbors because it was on market for so long. So I was like, all right, something's fishy. But we're strolling around in this plot of land, and he says that. He says, we're doing this to keep our marriage alive. And I'm like, man, what do you mean by this? Like, what the heck? And he goes, when you've been married for like 40 years, it becomes you need something to look forward to at all times, or the marriage gets stale, and then you start fighting and arguing, and it just leads down this bad path.
Right.
So their plan was to build on this property and make it like they had a ton of money, and they were just kind of doing this as an adventure. But he was like, "This is what's going to keep our marriage alive." So I really took that, and I was like 21 or 22 at the time. And I was like, wow, that was like a very impactful moment that I had realized because it is boring. Being in a relationship for a long time, I can't even imagine 40 years is like insanity. So to do it without, I don't know whether it be like a dog or kids or traveling or anything, like if you're just sitting there, I imagine some dark times are coming for
And
you.
how much harder would that marriage be if you were out of shape or poor or
100%.
a liar, right? Like it comes all back to having those qualities, making enough money to have that lifestyle that both of you want. Everybody wants to have those floor seats. Everybody wants to fly private. You know, if you're not willing to do what it takes to get there, then be honest with yourself, right? And be honest with the partner that you are hopefully going to spend the rest of your life with. Or, you know, when you have that conversation, I think she's going to find out very quickly, you know, coming from a male perspective, whether you are willing to do what it takes to achieve your goals, however hard they may be. And no matter what, like, life doesn't get easier. You always get busier. You're going to have less time tomorrow than you do today, but you get stronger. If you do it right, you get stronger, you get better. And every day you level up, you bring a new level of discipline to your business, to your family, to your friends that you didn't have the day before. And that's why I think personal development is the most selfless thing you can do.
100%.
Imagine what
100%.
kind of podcast guest I would be if I was more eloquent, if I was more studious, if I had more Coral Gables market data to pull from, etc. Right? Like your podcast would be that much more valuable to the audience. They would be that much more entertained, etc. So, you know, for people who think it's selfish to be alone and not go out, not go to the party, to stay home and work on your business, to read your books, that's actually the most selfless thing you could do for everyone around you.
100%. 1,000. I agree 100%. So I haven't drank in like a year, and I will never drink another drink in my life, right?
Wow.
I have my time. I always thought that I was never going to drink from after college, right? Like right when I graduated, I didn't even graduate college, but when I was buying real estate trying to tell my friends like to hop on this $200,000 profit train that I'm about to rip right now. And they're like, dude, I can't even freaking pass my engineering class. Like, shut up. You know what I mean? So it's like, that was an interesting thing is like, I always thought I was going to be done drinking at the end of college, but that didn't happen. I drank up until I turned, like, I can't even remember if I was 26. So I stopped drinking when I was 26, and my mom has not drank for like 7 years. She's got a clock, and she's very proud of it. Donald Trump never took a drink in his life, all these things, right? My mom attributes a massive amount of her success to not drinking alcohol. So she's always been on my case. Stop drinking, stop drinking, stop drinking, stop drinking. And I always knew I was going to, but the time has come, and it is what it is. I don't smoke weed. I smoke cigars. So I would say nicotine is
Nicotine's a wonderful thing.
Huh?
I'm a big fan of nicotine for sure.
Bro, it's my only vice, but at the same time, it makes me so creative.
Right.
Like, bro, if I go rip a cigar and just sit there and think, like, it's just like my mind is
the extra
buzzing.
clarity,
I'm
the
like,
stimulation.
bro,
Yeah.
fuck. Like, this shit's
Who doesn't
crazy.
love a good cigar?
Yeah.
What's your favorite cigar?
I smoke the cheap shit, bro. And it has to be light, otherwise it fucks my throat up.
Yeah. Okay.
So Monte Cristo White Series or the champagne.
That's not the cheap shit, but Monte Cristo is pretty good.
Champagne's pretty cheap, right?
Champagne,
The yellow one or
the
whatever?
yellow ones. So I went to the Monte Cristo factory or the bar that they have in Boca Raton a few weeks ago, and that was incredible. I smoked like an anniversary series with a new agent that we recruited. He wanted to introduce me to the place, and that was the first Monte Cristo cigar that I had. I think it was like $18 for the cigar, but phenomenal. I even put it out. I was able to smoke it like 3 days later on the beach with my dad, and I was like, Dad, try this, and he was like, damn, that's actually pretty good. And it was like 3 days old. So Monte Cristo has a good brand in my book so far.
They do. Dude, I have a cigar out there at all times, and I'll just go like take 2 puffs, like roll around on my phone out on the deck back there, just leave it there. I don't even care, humidor, whatever the hell it's supposed to be in. Nah, dude, just like pick it up, 2 hits. Okay, I'll be back in 4 days.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny as hell. Bro, Coral Gables is a different market. There's nothing for sale in the 2 million mark. I just texted all my neighbors. Like, I could sell this house right now for, I really think, like, I bought it for 2.2 in October. I think I could sell it for like 2.7 right now, 2.8.
When I say prices are coming down, asking prices are coming down,
Sure.
not sale prices, right?
Sure.
So 3 months ago, you might have been able to sell it for 2.85, but now 2.7, but it's still $500K more than what you bought it for.
Yeah.
That's my point. There's volatility, and right now there's downward pressure on America, not just the real estate market, but there's downward pressure, especially with the condo crisis. But that's everywhere. I think the most resilient sector of the market is single family non-HOA or 2 to 4 unit multifamily non-HOA. But asking prices are still coming down to meet demand.
Yeah, bro. I mean, I don't really know what to say on that. I kind of take it deal by deal and client by client. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's more macroeconomic. Obviously, every scenario is unique, and everyone loves a good deal. You can still find a good deal in this market. I'm just speaking generally. That there's a lot of overpriced listings on the market, and that's why you're seeing so many price reductions.
Sure.
I don't know Coral Gables as intimately as you do, but I know how it's one of the ritziest markets in the country. I think it's the number one ritziest market in the country from a price per square foot perspective and just the quality of life, the lifestyle. But that doesn't mean prices aren't coming down. It's not an invincible market.
Yeah. It's super interesting, bro. But like, there's always a deal to be had. I've never bought a deal off market in my life, and I've made the biggest flip I've did $600K net in 6 months. That's when I really realized I was like, oh shit, real estate's like crazy. And the house before this one, I bought it for $710, put $30,000 in, sold it for $900 cash a year later. Caught it right when interest rates were skyrocketing. Took way longer than expected, but I lived in the house, so it was okay, right? But like, everybody sits there and complains and does this and does that. Like, sellers obviously want the most amount of money. It just sounds like he's not as motivated to sell as he should be or as he needs to be, or he doesn't care if he sits on market for a long time, right? And I think it's always our job to bridge that gap of like determine motivation, because some people are comfortable sitting on market for a year. My last house was on market for a year, but I sold it for I got what I wanted. You know what I mean? But like, I didn't have to sell. So it always comes down to, for me, like a situation, right? Like, I don't know this guy's situation, but it sounds like he's not very pressed to sell.
Yeah, it's an investor. It's not like
exactly, bro. Exactly. That's all you had to say. That's done. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, that's all. I don't know. But then we're on the side like, damn, we want this commission check. Like, let's lower the fucking price and sell this bitch.
More important than the money, obviously, we all want to get paid for our time, and we don't get paid until the closing table, right? Whether it's 30 days or 3 months, but closing the loop, man. Like, I hate it when the listing expires, even when it's not mine. I'm like, damn, what happened? Why couldn't you sell the property? And, expired listings is a big part of our business, so we do everything we can to avoid letting listings expire, right? And it goes back to square one, taking listings that the seller is motivated. They're going to do what it takes to cause the home to sell, accommodate showings, open houses if we need to. And this deal just kind of fell in my lap. It was kind of hard to say no. It's in Jupiter. I wanted a listing in the area.
Always take the deal. Ain't no question about that.
Yeah, but, I'm okay with not taking listings at this point in my career if they're not motivated or if it's not at a price that's going to cause it to sell.
I would rather just take it. I don't care what price you want to list it at, but just have that conversation. But there's two different types of deals in my book. One, the market's going to sell it, and two, you got to hustle to sell it. Meaning you got to like convince somebody and kind of manipulate them into purchasing it, which I think is an interesting deal because it's, in this case, like this investor, that's what it sounds like, right? Like, you're going to have to go
show this condo to several buyers and sell the lifestyle.
Yeah, you're not selling the property.
Not gonna do it for you.
Exactly. You're not selling the property. You're selling some Joe Schmo who's like, oh, I love this view because I can see this restaurant. Well, I don't know the case of the scenario, but
sell the sizzle, not the steak.
Exactly. So it's either hustle it or the market's going to sell it. And
the market's not selling most properties right now. You got to hustle for most of your deals. So what's next for you? You sell real estate full-time, part-time?
Full-time.
Full-time.
I invest in real estate as well. I have a bunch of rentals that I own up in Wisconsin still. This is my only property down here. Bought it, like I said, October of last year. This is the first house I'm ever in that I'm comfortable enough to be like, okay, I could have kids here. Like, I see myself. Like, if I don't ever sell this property and live here, I'd be okay. Do I think it's gonna happen? No. I'll probably sell it and buy something in Pinecrest in, I don't know, a couple of years or whatever. But I'm kind of at that point, so I'll never buy a single family home ever again. I'll dive into like the 2 through 4 units or bigger multifamily. instead of buying this house, it was either buy this house or buy something in Little Havana, and we were writing offers on like 15-unit buildings, which was interesting in and of itself. This market down here, are you familiar with Little Havana?
Yeah.
So there's this is interesting, and people are going to take this and run with it. I don't think it's uncommon knowledge at this point, but there's a massive rent gap between Little Havana and Brickell and downtown. And the gap needs to be closed, and there's a lot of opportunity in that window, right? The delta is, I forget what I can't even remember because I ran it a while ago, but at some points it was like $600 delta on a one-bedroom. Like, all right, there's so much money to be made right here. Like, yeah, you're going to pay a premium for the land. It's probably going to be a redevelopment because this building was built in freaking 1870. You know what I mean? It's like, so it was an interesting approach. But now, man, I think I'm going to start developing property, meaning like ground up construction, duplexes, start that roll and hit it. And then I really focus on selling like this neighborhood and then Brickell and Coconut Grove. So those are kind of my movement pieces and where I'm at.
Definitely. You're familiar with Lux Properties, right?
Yes, sir. My girlfriend who's in that room, I just saw her walk by. She's with Lux.
Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah. For how long?
2 years now.
Nice.
Or 2 years or something.
So you're very familiar.
Very familiar. Wesley.
Yeah.
John. Wesley texted me when John was here. And he's like, "Hey, Wesley. No way, shout out Wesley." So I'll probably be joining that brokerage, honestly, because I'm in Modern World Realty right now, which is out in Kendall. But the reason I was there is they were giving me Zillow leads. And, I mean, I'm just kind of over that. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I need
and any top brokerage is going to offer something like that anyways. So,
yeah. And being in Coral Gables, if you don't have a Coral Gables office, it's a lot harder. I wasn't in Coral Gables before, so it didn't really matter. Like, I could get away with that.
You could walk to our office from here.
Exactly, yeah. So I just think it makes sense. It was either Lux or Douglas Allen, which is more of a luxury brand, but we'll see what happens with that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what happens. What's your next plan, goal, etc.?
Yeah, so always thinking 5 moves ahead. I was at the Vault conference.
It's a book,
Patrick
right?
Bet David. And yeah, no, that's all right. But no, big fan of Patrick. There was over 6,000 people at the event. This was hands down. I've been to a lot of conferences, and this was the best business conference that I've ever attended. The networking, surrounding yourself with CEOs and business owners who have hundreds of employees, raising money, not just for deals, but for their businesses, right? Dude, blew my mind how much value Patrick delivered, and there was zero pitching until the very last day where they dropped the prices for tickets next year and said, "Hey guys, this isn't going to be around for more than a few days. Jump on these ticket prices because, there was over 6,000 people at this event. We're going to have to move locations next year because it's consistently growing." And
he's probably working his way up to a arena or a stadium.
100%.
Grant did it first. He's going to do it second.
Dude, it was incredible, man. So right now we do have a lot of different verticals that we're focusing on, and we need to slow down and just develop each vertical instead of trying to do them all at once, because we do mortgages. We have a commercial real estate agent who does a lot of commercial deals with us. We want to open a title company. We run a sales team that has its own marketing initiatives within the sales team. We have a course. We have an educational product where we teach agents how to go after expired listings, stuff that your brokerage should teach you how to do but doesn't. Put that into a $400 course that we're going to probably run a crazy sale on, crazy promotion on in the next month or two, just to help people really learn what it takes to be successful in this business, because it's a hard business. Like you said, it's not a 9-to-5 type of business. It's a lifestyle. I can now more than ever get more work done from my desk than being out in the field, which is the benefit of having a team, the benefit of doing mortgages, the benefit of having the educational product. So it's cool to be able to do more from home. But at the end of the day, real estate is a contact sport. You need to be out in the field if you want to do these deals yourself, right? So what's next for me personally? Really just want to continue scaling the team. By the end of the year, we'll have 10 agents and have taken 60 listings since inception, which was about 4 months ago, 3 or 4 months ago. So that's that's our next line in the sand. That's our next milestone. By the end of the year, we want to have signed 60 listings and closed $30 million in production. Next year, the goal is $100 million.
Hell yeah, brother. It brings up an interesting point because, so I'm a second generation real estate entrepreneur. My mom has a team, a title company, a lending company, all of it, right? Everybody's model is vertical integration at some point because it just makes sense in this industry, right? It's move horizontal and capture all the different revenues at each different point, right? Every transaction has all those pieces that you just mentioned. So it's like, okay, let me get all of that. Now, I think you hit it on the head. It's like there's a fine line of that horizontal or that integration versus focusing on one individual thing that's your thing. Now, one way that I've seen people do it is take on partners, right? A 50-50 partner, a 49-51, and then you got a lawyer that you're partnered with running the title company and you funnel all your deals through there, right? It's like, it makes sense. Everybody does it. How are you planning to kind of shake that out, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I guess I actually haven't seen so many people do it. In Miami, it might be more popular, but having spent 10 years in Orlando, like no one does real estate, owns their own mortgage company, owns the title company. They always partner. So we want to own, right? And if we're going to partner with someone, we will still own that partnership. Right, we will still own.
So 51-49.
50-50.
50-50?
Yeah, 50-50. With a partnership, you can do 50-50. So, the goal is to be vertically integrated and to have exclusive partnerships with vendors who we don't have like an actual partnership with to provide a high-level service that we can trust our clients will be happy with.
Like a moving company or an attorney or
right. Like I have no business in starting an inspection company. I have no interest.
You go straight into litigation.
Yeah, exactly. But like a title company, I would be interested. So having an exclusive relationship with the best home inspector in each district, for example, right? Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach are totally different beasts. So we will have exclusive relationships in each market to provide that intimate experience. So there's a lot, because in having this playing field and verticals every step along the way, we're also in different markets, right? So it's interesting. I feel like I'm playing in the sandbox right now. We're having a lot of fun. So as serious as I do take our business and my personal business, I'm also having a lot of fun with the process and having the right business coach, having the right mentorships, and being surrounded by the right people is what's making this so much more enjoyable along the way because it is a tough business. You're dealing with a lot of emotions in residential that in commercial, you kind of bypass a lot of the time. But, yeah, what's next for us? Like I said, just hitting our sales goals and having fun along the way.
Okay, so now so I had a brokerage, my own brokerage up in Wisconsin, and we had 4 people. I was 22 at the time, and I had 0 leadership skills at all, and I found that out very quickly, right? Because you come up, at that young of age, you haven't lived many experiences. Like there's certain things that you can stack up and say, hey, I've done this and this. I'm very happy of that. But a lot of leadership comes from experience and I guess studying leadership. So one thing that I was lacking when I had my team was that leadership. It wasn't until after the team dissipated that I learned about a gentleman named John Maxwell. Yeah. So you study John? Okay, so I learned about him, read all of his books, and kind of dove into that process. How has been? You said your inception was 4 months ago. How has been the leadership side of this team?
The leadership has been the hardest part. Partnership is harder than entrepreneurship, and I partnered with like my best friend. It's not just I found someone who I thought would be a good fit, and then trying this new relationship both in a business and person. No, like this is someone that I know very well, who I'm getting to know all over again in a different dimension, right? So on top of that, we now have agents that work with us and for us that are leaning on us to educate them, to train them, to level up their sales acumen, their business acumen, their personal growth, right? And it's something that it's not like I have zero experience. I've been on a team and I've ran other buyer teams before at a similar age. But now I'm way more developed than I was 6 years ago, even 2 years ago, right? Like, we do mortgages and we have an intimate understanding of single-family home, 2 to 4 unit multifamily, and how all these additional fees when you get into other asset classes affects demand and pricing, right? So I feel like we bring a really skillful knowledge to the table when we work with buyers and sellers, but having that translate to agents who work for you, who just joined your team, that's magic. You know, that's the sauce. And, you know, we do it with trainings, we do it with our sales meetings. We actually have a lot of spreadsheets that track the KPIs that we want to measure, because we all know numbers tell a story. And if you're not making the calls, then, you know, you're already shooting yourself in the foot. But if you're making the calls and you're not getting the appointments, probably need to work on your scripts. If you're getting the appointments and you're not getting the deals, the listing signed, then you need to work on your presentation. If you're getting the listing signed and you're not selling them, you need to study the market a little bit better, communicate your value, and take a better price listing. Or it could tell a little bit about the marketing, but we have a standard for marketing, so it's usually not the marketing. And if you are closing most of your, you know, numbers tell a story, right? And we track everything. Like, you cannot work on our team unless you use the tools and resources that we give you. Otherwise, you know, you could shoot from the hip on your own. We don't need you on the team if you're not going to take this seriously. So I feel like I'm pretty good at leadership. And I say that with as much like humility as is appropriate, right? But I do believe I'm a strong leader. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in leadership. And again, it's one of the more selfless things you can do, because now I am coaching more and giving more advice than I am speaking with homeowners. And it's the coolest thing in the world to see somebody like level up their business using the advice and the methodologies that you gave them. So
100%.
Yeah, someone else that I've been modeling is Dan Martell. I actually met him at the Four Seasons a few weeks ago in Brickell, and he has a book called Buy Back Your Time, and it's essentially transformational leadership.
Okay.
Right? Like, if there's an activity that you do in your day that you're pretty good at, but it doesn't make you a lot of money and it doesn't fire you up, then it's something you should leverage out. So a good example for me has been doing CMAs, right? Like, I'm good at it, but it doesn't fire me up, right? It's just like a task that I have to do when I could be building relationships, coaching, on the phone with someone else, interviewing, a million other things I could be doing than doing a CMA, as important as it may be. So it has to get done, but I don't necessarily have to do it, right? So now we have our virtual assistants. They're some of the best CMA artists in the game, right? And they'll do it in 10 minutes, 20 minutes.
For $5.
From
Upwork.com.
For a way lower price than my time is worth.
Yeah.
And they upload the listing package, the CMA, the home selling guide, all this other stuff to the client's personal Google Drive folder, a process that I taught them how to do. And then we text them a link to the Google Drive folder at least 4 hours before the appointment. Hey, check this out when you have a minute. I made this just for you. Now they open it up. It's their own personal Google Drive folder. They're like, wow, a realtor who knows how to use technology. This is pretty cool. And then a CMA that has price per square foot for active, pending, canceled, sold listings in order. And I didn't have to do any of it.
Now let me ask you this.
I taught him how to do it.
Do you take printed materials with you to the listing appointment as well?
Never.
Really?
Never.
I know a lot of people kind of give and take with that.
I used to. But Apple makes these devices super easy to use, and I've never gotten pushback from someone who's in an older generation from signing on an iPad. Never. They actually think it's just as easy as using their phone.
Yeah, that's crazy, bro. So I think one thing that I learned when I had that team as well is like the training and the systems, the SOPs that you have in place for your business make your life either miserable or amazing. So I just heard an SOP that you ran through me there is like, okay, we got the VAs pulling CMAs into the drive and then all of those things, right? have you had any struggles with the SOPs, or have you created any amazing SOPs different from the one that you just told me that you're like, hey, this is like fabulous, or this sucks?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have enough SOPs. You know, like
Nobody
I said,
does.
we just started 4 months ago, and the ones that I pride myself upon are still like not perfect. You know, they might be 90% of the way there, 95% of the way there. But even when you create a new SOP, you have to test it out and refine it for a little bit. You can't just like keep moving on to the next system. Otherwise, you're going to be 2 to 3 degrees off center in multiple areas of your business. And you're going to end up pulling your hair out of your head, right? So one new SOP, create it, test it, refine it, move on to the next, right? And I think you have to test it at least 4 or 5 times and have clients in different scenarios. It's not like every client comes to you in the same exact scenario, to make sure that you're accounting for all the different pieces of that procedure, to make sure that you're not letting anything fall through the cracks, and you're also following through the closing table, right? Not just getting them there and then disappearing, but making sure that we keep that human element very tangible, right? That they feel like they're getting that 4 seasons experience, even though it's costing us less than it, does to cook a steak at Outback, for example.
Sure.
Right? So giving them that high quality service and not letting them see us sweat, I think, is the biggest thing that SOPs do for us.
Aaron, thank you so much for coming on. Much appreciated. Where can the audience find you? Because if they're on YouTube, I'm going to put it in the description below right here.
Yeah, so Aaron Abbadie on all the social media platforms. Instagram is the one that I use the most. But you can also find me on LinkedIn and Facebook as well.
Awesome. That sounds good. Thanks so much, man.
All right, man.
Nice to
Thanks
meet
for
you.
having me. Yes, sir.